Hi students, this is our third video in the short series of trying to model this desk buddy using SketchUp. In the first video we looked at modeling the basic shape of the desk buddy itself, so the two end sides and the base. Video 2 you will have gone through and you've added the curve at the back here and also the shaping for the neck. In this video we're going to look at how we can create the head that I have here for the giraffe. Now this video is going to go through a few new ideas, but again it's mostly going to be about drawing basic shapes and pushing and pulling them to make the shape here. What's going to be different this time is we're going to start with an image as our starting point. And what I did is I did a bit of a Google search and I eventually found this picture. I chose this picture because it has a nice cartoonish sort of look, which is what I want for my desk buddy. It also has some nice clear outlines to it. And most importantly, for the way I want to design this, it's a flat front-on view. Because what we're going to do is basically trace this shape out and then use that to create the three-dimensional shape for the front of our giraffe's face. Now you could do this from a side view or other shapes as well, but for the way I'm going to model this, having this flat view is really useful. So the first thing I did is just save this picture. From there, if I go back to the one we've been working on, what I need to do first is bring that picture into the modeling environment so that I can then try and trace it. I'm going to do that by going to the 3-line bar up the top. Now, I don't think I've mentioned saving. Obviously, you should be saving your work regularly. So it's the same menu you'd go to save. But this time I'm going to import. I'm going to just import, in this case, from my device because I've saved that picture onto my computer. If I had it in my OneDrive or somewhere like that, I could choose that option. But for now, I'm just going to choose to bring it in from my device. I can either drag the file over or click on here to go through my file folders and find it. I'm going to drag it in this particular case. And it then asks me, am I importing an image or a material? A material would be a texture that you could use to paint the model you're creating. In this case, we just want the actual image. So I'm going to choose that. And what you'll now notice is here is my model, and it's trying to put it on the flat surface to begin with. I could put it on to an actual model, so this could be useful for texturing later on, but let's for now just put it on the ground. So I'm going to click once, and then what you'll notice if I move my mouse, I'm actually sort of sizing it in. And if you look down the bottom again, where we normally look down here, it's talking about the width. So I'm going to, for now, set the width to be 90, which matches the width of the front of our desk buddy. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just going to set it at that and press enter, and I now have that picture. So in it of itself, it's not a three-dimensional shape. We're just going to use this basically as a template to trace around. So what I'm going to do now is I'm basically going to rotate this model around, so I'm looking straight down on this this picture. Now you could fiddle around trying to get there, but let's use the built-in views. So I come over here to my right-hand dock and I choose the view, which is like the little play icon here. I can choose one of the default views, and because I want to look straight down, I'm just going to choose this top view. So if I click on that, I'm now looking straight down onto the models. And I'm just going to now zoom in to just the giraffe. I'm not really worried about the rest of my model for now, so I'm just going to zoom in so my giraffe takes up most of the space. So now I'm looking straight down, and essentially I'm going to draw to trace around this. Now if I look at this, I can see that it's made up of really some basic shapes. There's a big oval for the face. There's two circles at the top of the little ear stalks that it has, some lines that join that up, and some curves that make up the ears. They do have a couple of little inside curves to them, but they're really just curves. So if I start by thinking about the shapes that make up this picture, I can then start looking at how to draw them. So I'm going to start with the main oval shape for the face. So when I come over to my drawing tools and I have a look, I have a circle tool, but there is no oval tool. But of course, an oval is just a circle that's been squished in some directions and lengthened in others. So I'm going to start by drawing a circle. Now, the circle tool by default draws from the center. So I'm going to put it roughly where I think the center is and just draw an approximate circle. It doesn't have to be perfect yet. One thing we haven't talked about with circles is the way SketchUp draws them, and most programs are the same. It draws them with sets of short straight lines because it can't really draw a curve actually. So to get a better smooth circle, we want to have much shorter lines with much shallower angles, so more little segments as they're called. And I can do that straight away, by looking down the bottom where it says, hey, you can use control and the plus key or control and the minus key to change the number of segments in the circle. So if I want to increase the number of circles, I'm going to press control and plus, and I'm going to increase. And you can see as I do that, my circle edge is getting smoother because I'm putting more and more tiny little lines in it and reducing the angles to get a smoother circle. This does have a consequence later on for modeling. The more lines and vertices, as we call them, we put in, the harder the model is to design. But because our overall model is quite simple, I'm actually happy just to get some smoothness here. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to actually go up to 40 sides just to get a fairly smooth, straight circle. So the next thing is I need to now turn this into an oval. So I'm going to do that by resizing. So to resize, if you click the little search, which is like a little dog chasing a ball, that's what I call it anyway, and you type in size, you should get the option of resizing. No, they've changed it. Resize, let's try that better. Scale, that's actually the word we wanted, and we should be able to also use the S key. But if we do that, we get these resizing. But I actually did that on the wrong piece. What I want to do that on is the circle. So first of all, I need to make sure I've got my circle chosen. And if I press S for scale, then I get these options. And I can basically take these little red corners and points, and I can adjust. So you can see if I push from the side, I'm making an oval. So I'm just going to bring this one to roughly where that outside edge is. I'm going to bring this one in on that side to about the same. I'm just going to basically fiddle with these adjustments until I have it roughly where the outside of my giraffe's face is. So it doesn't have to be perfect. This is not, doesn't have to be an exact replica, but just close enough. So now I've taken a circle and I've converted it into an oval. Simple as that. Select somewhere else just to undo that. Now I'm going to start with these little circles up here. So again, I'm going to start by drawing a circle. This time, I'm not going to squash it. So I'm just going to draw roughly a circle that I like. And I'm using the fact that it knows where that line is to go across to keep them at the same point, around about halfway. Just draw another circle. Now I could have copied and pasted that circle. I wanted exactly the same, but my giraffe's not perfectly symmetrical, and that's fine with me. I'm now going to use my pen tool just simply to draw lines approximately to represent these stalks. And once I've drawn 2 lines in, you'll see it fills in. So again, I can draw some lines to bring this together. So there we go. So far I've got the face area and the sort of ear stalks. Now I have to talk about these ears. So I'm going to use, in this case, another arc tool, and this time it's going to be the 3-point arc. Okay, the reason I'm going to use a 3-point is I'm going to start from a tip, I'm going to do a roughly middle point, and then I'm going to do an end point joining onto the circle. And you can see now, if I zoom in a little bit, that I've got these extra points, which I'm going to be able to adjust a little bit more in a second. So here, around about the middle, and around about where it curves again. And you can see there, I've got a shape that's reasonably close to the shape that I originally had. I could modify that more, but I'm happy enough with that. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. So let's try the other one. I'll start from the face this time. I'm going to go around about halfway, so about where the curve starts coming over again, and then around the tip area. And again, this one I'm going to go from the face around about where it curves and back in to the tip again. And I now have the whole of my giraffe's face drawn. At this point, if I wanted to, I could get rid of the default picture. I'm just actually going to hide this like I've hidden other things before. And I can now see that I have my whole giraffe face. And if I was to now rotate, again, I would see like earlier, this is still a flat picture. So I'm going to push and pull this, just like everything else so far, to create a 3D object. But before I do that, watch what happens, because what I have is still individual shapes. So if I was going to try and push and pull this in one piece, it wouldn't work, because each of these enclosed shapes is its own piece. So what I'm actually going to do is just do a little bit of cleaning up. So I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm going to click on the bit of line between the ear and the face here, so it's highlighted, and I'm just going to remove it. And that basically means that it's now joined the ear to the face. They have become one piece. And I can do that in each of the locations where essentially a line is cutting through my shape. So each time I remove one of these lines, I'm essentially adding those pieces to the bigger shape. And that way I've created a single piece now. And that single piece can now be pushed or pulled as one piece. And just like before, I can set my thickness. I'm going to use again the 12mm thickness, the same as I was using for the main wood of the piece. So I've now got this new piece that is 12mm thick, and I've used a shape to trace it out. And just like before, I'm going to select everything here, if I choose a selection tool that is, and I'm going to turn that also into a component so I can move it around easily and not break it by accident. So let's make that a component, and I'll call that the face. So now I can move that around, but I've got a problem, and this is something we haven't really dealt with yet, which is the rotation. So what I'm going to do is first of all think about how I'm going to rotate this so that it's facing the right way. So again, it's often useful to angle your model so that when you're rotating, you can think about the way it needs to rotate. So what I'm going to do now is use the rotation tool, which is in here, and it looks like a compass usually. Why have I lost it? Oh, that's right here. So rotate. There it is. So it gets that sort of compass look. And this is what I have now. I need to get this rotation tool to look like it's straight on like that. And I'm going to just click on it once, click on another edge, and I'm going to rotate it. Now that has not quite gone right, so let's do it again. Now the problem I've got here is because this is a curved surface. So what has happened there? I've accidentally turned that not into a component anymore. Let me just bring that back again. Component, there you go, it's back to being a component. I just did a couple of redos. What I'm looking to do is try and get this rotation to be standing completely upright. Now the way I'm going to do that actually is I'm going to use some of those options down the bottom here about locking the way it's going to rotate. So if I look, it says the arrow keys will lock the rotation plane. So I'm just pressing the left, right, up and down arrows to see each of the options, and it turns out that for me, the left arrow sets the rotation to be on the green axis. So what I've got now is it locked in the right way. If I click on that corner and I usually go the opposite corner again, I can rotate like that. So that's a good start. Okay, so I'm going to go 90 degrees rotation. I can type that in and press it. And then I'm also going to do the same thing in the next direction. So again, I'm just rotating around a bit and thinking about this shape, and I now want to rotate it around that way. So again, if I use my rotation tool, and this time I want it locked in the red direction, so I'm trying my arrow keys again, there you go, the red direction, go across to here, and I'm again going to rotate like that, so I'm going to get it to be standing upright. So that's also 90 degrees, there it is, whoops, too far. And I now have my piece rotated in the right direction. It's not in the right place, but at least it's rotated correctly. Now, just like before, I'm going to take that piece that's there, use my move tool, and I'm going to bring it to where it needs to be. Now, I'm going to put it roughly where I think is correct, but it looks good there. But if I rotate around, you can see it's not. So again, I'm going to use the same tricks that I've been using before of being able to take a point and lock it on to another point. So that is now taken essentially what was the bottom point of this curve and locked it to the edge here. And that's starting to look like what I want. But you might be noticing that my original has it on a little stalk, a little piece of what will probably be a piece of dowel. And that's the last step that I'm actually going to do. So what I'm going to do is just move this out of the way for a moment, first of all. I'm going to be looking at the top here. I basically want to put a little circle right in the middle. The way I'm going to find the middle is, again, I'm going to use my construction line tool, and I'm going to just draw, first of all, line from corner to corner and corner to corner, and obviously where those cross over now is the center, okay? Because I want to now actually edit this piece, I'm going to click on it to be now editing the actual component, not just on top of it. And I'm going to draw another circle, just a normal circle this time, from that center point. So I'm using the crossover line as the center point, draw a circle out, and I'm going to be using a piece of 6mm dowel, which means the radius I put in, of course, is half of that. So it's going to be 3mm. So I'm going to click on that to get my 3mm radius circle. And being that it's drawn on there, I can just push and pull it down a bit. I'll go down, let's go 5mm for now. It doesn't really matter, okay? So I've now got a indent, if you like, into my piece that I'll drill with probably a drill press or a hand drill later on. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of the component, because I don't want to edit that anymore. I'm going to get rid of these construction lines because I don't need them anymore. Just select and delete them. But again, I'm going to draw this again. I'm going to actually draw my circle again. Just like before, if I can choose a circle that is. I'm going to draw that again, make it 3mm radius, and this time remember it's not actually in the model, it's sitting on top. So now when I pull that up, I'm actually creating a new piece. So I'm going to bring that up, and I'm going to go up, let's say, I don't know, 60mm. I don't know exactly how big it should be. That's way too big actually. So let's undo that. Let's just bring it up 30mm. That will do. And now I have the stalk basically, or the what's going to represent the piece of dowel that I'm going to have my giraffe head sit on. And so the final piece is to bring that giraffe head back in. So again, I'm going to now bring that head closer, okay? And I'm going to lock it in place. So just like before, I'm just going to lock it in place for now. I could do this even more accurately, but I'm just going to eyeball it for the moment. I'm just getting approximately where it should be. You might think about how you would get that more accurate, but for now, I'm happy with that. And there we go. We have modeled, this was the original. That's the one we've just done. But the only thing I can really see is it looks like in this case I probably squashed the head a bit more. This one looks a little bit longer. If I wanted to do that, I could scale and of course bring that down, make it more of a rounded head. But in this case, I'm going to stick with the more oval head. And that is it. That is the modeling of our giraffe, and that's all we need to do. So you might start the same as I have by creating the basic shape, then adjusting your basic shape to have more of the shape of the animal or character you're creating. And you might even go as far as finding an image like my giraffe face that you can then use to trace or create the basis of other components. And of course, it doesn't have to be the face. I know one of the examples we had was a crab. You might find a claw that you'd like to use and find a claw shape to trace and draw to create. And one of the good things is these pieces we can now measure virtually. So if I need to know exactly how big a piece to cut, I can come across here and measure that distance. Go, oh, it's 116mm long. I can measure the height of it. And I can get all the measurements I need from this model because I've drawn everything accurately. And I can even possibly get some of these pieces cut for me. So for example, and I might do a video on this a little bit later, I could take this head and potentially provide that to be laser cut or 3D printed or something like that. So by 3D modeling it first, we then have something that we can work with other technologies to create pieces for us. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this has been something you've been able to follow along with, either for yourself or even in a class with me. If you're having trouble, please feel free to get in contact and ask for some assistance. And that's it. That's the modeling of our giraffe.